This page is the front cover of N64 Pro magazine, leading with the controversial 18 rating for Body Harvest, proclaiming it a full-on gore-fest. Blimey, who would have thought you'd see that on the N64? The cover shows the main character ready for action alongside what looks like some sort of armored suit, probably needed for dealing with all that gore. Down the bottom you've got the lovely ladies from Fighting Force, promising more girl power, from Eidos, classic arcade beat MUP action that. Plus, there's a hefty free 200-page book included, and a chance to win an £850 hi-fi system. Inside, they're hyping up F1 World Grand Prix as apparently better than any PlayStation racer that's fighting talk. And get this, WWF Warzone is apparently so realistic you can smell the opponent's body odor. Right then, maybe stick to the visuals on that one. Of course, they also have the latest on Zelda 64, the game everyone was gagging for back then, and hints and cheats for loads of titles, including the brilliant Banjo-Kazooie. A packed issue by the looks of it. This page kicks off with a humorous take on racing rules, starting with a contract clause about being considerate, only to flip it with the idea that it doesn't apply if they're in front of you. It's setting the stage for some competitive racing. The main feature is clearly GT64 Championship Edition, hyped as having the fastest 3D engine, and offering races on 12 tracks with 12 licensed teams, promising pure gameplay ecstasy. There are a few screenshots showing the cars tearing up the asphalt, looking pretty sharp for the time. They even throw down a challenge. Can you pass the N64 driving test? Over on the right, it's a look at the magazine's team, revealing that they didn't always have the best jobs in the world. Each person has a little profile detailing some truly awful past employment. You've got folks stuck photocopying microfiche, slinging records with no staff discount, a self-confessed lazy arse contemplating a paper round, a dairy assistant enduring endless milk crate drudgery, a pork pie factory operative who was put off pork pies for life, and a glass collector who threatened his landlord. Proper character building stuff that. Below that you've got the full list of the magazine's contributors and staff. N64 Pro issue 13 features a cover story previewing Body Harvest, along with previews of Fighting Force and Chopper Attack. The issue includes news on 40 Winks, Wipeout 64, and Pokémon, and reviews of several games including F1 World Grand Prix, Cruisin' World, and WWF Warzone. A competition for an £850 hi-fi system, and a free 200-page Banjo-Kazooie guide with cheats, are also highlighted. The issue offers a comprehensive look at upcoming and recently released N64 games, providing previews, reviews, and helpful resources. The magazine highlights several upcoming N64 games. Rally 64, a souped-up PlayStation game, promises more variety than Top Gear Rally, and is expected to be a superior racer. Midway is pushing to release NFL Blitz before competitors. Extreme G2, a sequel to a less favored first game, is improving graphics and frame rate but is unlikely to surpass F-Zero X. Buster Move 3, a sequel due for Christmas, adds 4-player mode and Rumble Pack support. Finally, StarCraft is nearing release, while Ogre Battle 3, a strategy RPG based on the SNES hit, is receiving significant attention for its real-time battles and quest-driven gameplay. Nintendo 64 news includes confirmation of Zelda 64's gold cartridge, promising updates for Top Gear Rally's sequel, and a massive 32 MB cartridge for Turok 2. Seeds of Evil, requiring the expansion pack for high resolution. The expansion pack, previously linked to the 64DD, is crucial for enhanced N64 gaming, per third-party developers. Milo's Bowl-O-Rama is changing to Milo's Astro Lanes, and Konami's G1 stable brings horse racing to the N64, possibly utilizing the large Japanese memory pack. Finally, Salford University is launching a games industry degree. This gaming news page highlights various upcoming and current releases. Ubisoft is reportedly optimistic about Buck Bumble, while Duke Nukem 0 Hour is predicted to rival GoldenEye. Mission Impossible leads UK sales, and F1 World Grand Prix tops the N64 charts. Zelda 64 remains a highly anticipated title, alongside the N64 update for Ogre Battle 3. Pocket Monster Stadium is a huge hit in Japan, though the import version's Japanese text poses a challenge. Alien Resurrection will bring a new Space Invaders experience to N64. Penny Racers is a promising racing game, while Costumed Vengeance, WCW/NWO Revenge, promises a realistic wrestling experience. Finally, GT Interactive secured the rights to Eurocom's 40 Winks, a game with high expectations. The next page is all about Wipeout 64, giving us a glimpse into Psygnosis's anti-gravity racer making its way to the N64. It's titled Wipeout 64 Gravitational Push and features several screenshots showing off the futuristic ships tearing along the tracks. The article goes into detail on how the game plays, explaining shield energy, speed-ups and checkpoints. It covers the various racing modes available: single race, time trial, challenge, and the all-important multiplayer, supporting up to 4 players. Key features mentioned include awesome circuits, a good number of ships on track at once, new superweapons, tournament mode, split-screen action, and N64 Rumble Pack support, essential for feeling every bump. It also introduces the different racing teams, like AG Systems and Oricom, and the various speed classes you can race in, from the beginner Vector class up to the speedy Rapier for experienced pilots. Looks like it's shaping up to be a proper blast. This page continues the look at Wipeout 64, getting into the nitty-gritty of how you'll be dishing out and taking punishment on the track. It details all the weapons and power-ups you'll pick up, from the standard rockets and missiles to handy shields and turbo boosts. There's also talk of more destructive gear like the Thunder Bomb and the properly disruptive Quake Disruptor. Sounds like a bit of a laugh for causing chows. They even mention unique super weapons developed specifically for each racing team, which is a cracking touch for adding tactical depth. Beyond just the standard races we saw on the last page, this explains the different challenge modes. There's the race challenge, obviously, where you just need to place well. Then you've got the time trial, which is purely about beating the clock with no distractions. Finally, the weapon challenge sounds interesting, focusing on how much damage you can inflict and ships you can destroy. You earn awards: bronze, silver, gold, depending on how you perform in these. All sounds like there's plenty to keep you busy perfecting your skills and getting that gold award. There's also a massive chunk of the page dedicated to a mail-order company, flogging N64 consoles, games, and just about every peripheral under the sun. Seems like the place to go if you needed some new kit back then. This page dives into the magazine's unique software house leagues, where they rate games and track how publishers stack up. It kicks off with a competition to win a year's subscription by submitting your own dream team. A bit of fun, I suppose, to see if you've got better taste than the pros. We get the star player, which this month is ISS World Cup 98, fair enough. Cracking football game. On the flip side, the Hall of Shame highlights disappointments like Star Soldier and Disamen 3D, which apparently struggled a bit. Sounds about right, some games just missed the mark. Warranted. The overall picture gives a quick rundown on the stats of reviewed games, noting that nearly 60% scored above average. Seems like a decent month for N64 releases then, which is always good to hear. Then there's the Reader's Dream Team, showcasing one reader's personal favorite lineup of games, featuring top titles like GoldenEye 007, Super Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie, and ISS 64 alongside a mix of others. Clearly this chap knows his stuff, picking some absolute classics there. Finally, they list the games they'll be playing for the next issue's ratings, and recap the points from the previous month's reviews. All part of the regular stats breakdown, keeping track of who's making the good stuff. This page gives us the highly anticipated release schedule, which honestly, back in the day, was the source of endless debate and excitement. They lead with a focus on Ocean/Infogrames, highlighting their move into the N64 space with Warner Bros. Licenses like Looney Tunes, Space Race, and Duck Dodgers. They also mention the intriguing Space Circus, and the highly anticipated V-Rally 64, which they reckon might be the pick of the bunch. Good shout, V-Rally was definitely a solid racer. Visually, we've got some rather peculiar-looking chaps from Space Circus, definitely a bit unusual, as they point out, alongside the ever-manic Taz getting ready to rumble. The Warner Bros. Deal sounds promising, potentially a license to print money rather than just make games, they cheekily suggest. Below that, we see the massive lists of upcoming games for the UK, US, and Japan, broken down by quarter, and even specific dates for 1998. It's a comprehensive look at what's coming down the pipe, promising plenty of action for the foreseeable future. Looks like the schedule is finally settling down, and everyone seems quite pleased about it. They promise to pick out some imminent must-haves from the list, which is always helpful. This N64 magazine issue features a comprehensive release schedule, highlighting must-buy games like Banjo-Kazooie, Mission Impossible, and F1 World Grand Prix. Reviews are presented with a scoring system: 90% plus equals buy, under 50% equals skip, along with import indicators. Previews of reviewed games, Cruisin' World, Turok, etc., and a one to watch, Body Harvest, are included. The issue concludes with the review team's profiles and apparent shared enthusiasm for Banjo-Kazooie. This page dives deep into the review of F1 World Grand Prix for the N64, declaring it the racing game the console was crying out for. Finally, a proper, serious F1 simulation. The reviewer reckons the N64 was brilliant for other stuff like platformers and shooters, but racing was a bit thin compared to that grey box rival, until this turned up. They're raving about the full Thea license, meaning you get all the real drivers from '97 like Schumacher and Häkkinen, and every single track, all beautifully recreated. The graphics apparently look so good at times they could be actual TV footage, even managing decent rain effects. You've got options for setting up your car, driving assists if you need them, and multiple modes including a Grand Prix season. It seems like it handles well too, finally giving us N64 owners a proper taste of F1 without having to look enviously at PSX racers. A real must-have if you like cars going fast. This review praises F1 World Grand Prix for its realistic visuals, using a variety of camera angles and detailed sound design, including tire screeching and engine noise. The game accurately portrays the cars and drivers of the era, each with unique handling characteristics. A gradual learning curve is noted, requiring practice for precise braking and acceleration. Advanced driving courses offer varying difficulties, from beginner to champion levels, with customizable damage settings. The inclusion of iconic tracks like Monaco and Spa adds to the simulation feel. Overall, the game is lauded for its immersive racing experience. Marie. This page continues the deep dive into F1 World Grand Prix, really getting stuck into the features. It highlights the cracking challenge mode, throwing you into real-life race scenarios from the '97 season. Got a puncture? Deal with it, and still try to finish well. Good stuff. They also bang on about the '97 events option, which is brilliant, letting you relive actual historical moments from the season, like Schumacher spinning out in ons. The review really pushes the game's realism, giving it a massive 94% overall score. They reckon the cars look and handle spot on, and the AI holds up too. The in-car view gets a special shout out for being immersive, especially if you've got a steering wheel. Apparently, it's really great. Their words, not mine, but fair enough. They also touch on the tactical side, mentioning damage, pit stops, and even how weather and track conditions influence your car setup, which is proper sim stuff. There's a nice little tribute to Ayrton Senna too, with a couple of his quotes, adding a bit of history. And yeah, the split-screen racing gets a nod, which is always good for a bit of head-to-head action with your mates. Seems like everyone agrees, from the staff reviewers to a bloke from Darlington, that this is a top-tier F1 game, potentially even better than the PS1 competition. High praise indeed. This review criticizes Cruisin' World, a sequel to the poorly received Cruisin' USA. While visually improved with silky smooth graphics and varied tracks, the gameplay is deemed boring and random. The reviewer notes a lack of engaging arcade-style fun, such as running over obstacles, despite the inclusion of car flipping and turbo wheelies. Questionable physics and a wide selection of ridiculous vehicles, including an ATV with a machine gun, are also mentioned. Ultimately, despite the graphical upgrades, the game receives a low 54% score, highlighting significant gameplay shortcomings. This page slams off Road Challenge, another racer that apparently tries to take the ingredients from the truly awful Cruisin' USA and makes them even worse. It's described as incredibly poor, with graphics that are apparently appalling and a game that's so jerky you might think your machine is broken. The reviewer reckons this thing doesn't deserve to sell a single copy. Despite picking from a bunch of vehicles, including monster trucks, and having challenge modes, the gameplay is slated for being mindless and lacking traction. The graphics are called out for bad sprites, pop-up, and blurriness, making even the screenshots look better than the actual game. Unsurprisingly, given the scathing review, it clocks in with a dreadful score of 23%, with graphics, sound, gameplay and lastability all getting the lowest possible scores. The reader reviews section echoes the sentiment, calling it filth and a waste of time. It seems this is another one best left in the bargain bin, if it ever even made it there. This page reviews Turok 64, a racer that the headline suggests can be a bit depressing at times. It's pitched as a mashup of Micro Machines and Mario Kart, based on some rather popular toy cars from Japan. The game features small, simple-looking vehicles racing on tracks, and while the graphics are colorful, the reviewer notes they don't exactly look amazing. Apparently the game is quite simple, and maybe a bit too easy, and there's a course editor you won't be able to fathom unless you're fluent in Japanese. The reviewer clearly isn't overly impressed, finding it hard to recommend to anyone not already obsessed with the series, and suggesting it struggles against the likes of Diddy Kong Racing and F-Zero X. They reckon it's aimed firmly at Japanese fans. Despite being based on a cool line of collectible toy cars, which is a nice bit of context shown with photos of the real things, the game itself lands with a distinctly average score of 48%. Other folks chiming in agree it's not exactly a must-have, maybe okay for a bit but nothing special. Seems like one best left unless you're a dedicated fan. This page gives us the lowdown on WWF Warzone, cheekily described as where real men wear skirts and skimpy leotards. Our reviewer is quick to point out the staged nature of real-life wrestling, but is pleasantly surprised by the game itself. Apparently this looks better than previous attempts at wrestling games, with what they call silky visuals, and clever techniques used to make the wrestlers look more solid and believable than you might expect. The gameplay, while perhaps a bit simple or repetitive at times, benefits hugely from realistic motion-captured moves and holds. There's a good lineup of 18 wrestlers, including big names like Stone Cold Steve Austin, Shawn Michaels, and The Undertaker, covering all your favorites from the time. The N64 version even gets an exclusive character in the form of Shamrock, which is a decent little perk. The sound and commentary are also highlighted as being particularly impressive. Plus, there's a cracking Create-a-Wrestler option, letting you build your own custom grappler with loads of different options to make them look exactly how you want. Seems like a strong showing for WWF on the N64. This page carries on with the WWF Warzone review, kicking things off by showcasing those Kings of the Ring, giving us a peek at the roster which includes all the big names you'd expect like Stone Cold Steve Austin, Bret Hart, The Rock, Mankind, and Shawn Michaels, complete with some rather memorable taunts. You know, the sort of witty banter only pro wrestlers can deliver. The review dives into the game's various modes, including Championship, versus for up to 4 players, Tag Team, Cage Matches, Royal Rumble, AN64 exclusive Gauntlet, and even a training mode. It seems they found the combat system interesting, moving away from just mashing buttons to something more akin to Street Fighter, with button combinations needed for specific moves. It might take a bit of getting used to, but apparently it allows for more tactical grappling and pulling off fancy moves. We see some good action screenshots, like Goldust grappling, Stone Cold celebrating his big win, and even a bit of brawling happening outside the ring. The final N64 score section wraps it up nicely, highlighting the graphics, sound, gameplay, and last ability, with little smiley faces and awarding it a cracking 85%. The consensus seems to be that it's the best wrestling game on the N64 at the time, with special praise for the variety of modes, and that excellent custom wrestler feature we heard about on the previous page. A solid performance all around. AN64 review of Buck Bumble, a shooter where you play a gun-toting bee named Buck Bumble, battling mutated insects. The game features flying through large gardens, a varied arsenal, and decent visuals. While compared to other N64 shooters like GoldenEye, the reviewer finds it enjoyable, but not quite on par with the best. The game offers a unique take on the genre, especially compared to standard Doom clones. Published by Ubisoft, it cost £50 and supports 12 players. This page continues the dive into Buck Bumble, showing off some rather spiffy character art of our buzzing protagonist. We get a good look at various gameplay moments through a series of screenshots, highlighting Buck in action with a whole arsenal of weapons, from the standard issue right up to the rather menacing HGS 2000. You can see him tackling radar dishes, navigating levels by shooting switches connected to pipes, clever that, and dealing with swarms of less than friendly insects. There's also a handy diagram showing you exactly which buttons do what on the N64 pad, useful for figuring out that hover mechanic. The big reveal here is the N64 score. A solid, if slightly underwhelming, 70%. The reviewer feels it's a bit of a disappointment overall, despite the great concept of a tiny bee flying around a garden. The graphics engine apparently isn't up to much, with an awful lot of fogging obscuring the view, a point echoed by other reviewers who weigh in. While the design ideas are good, the technical execution lets it down. It's deemed an average shoot-'em-up that doesn't quite hit the heights of classics like Forsaken or Lilat Wars. The score's breakdown shows decent marks across the board, but clearly, the visual issues held it back. This page dives headfirst into the utterly bonkers world of Rakuga Kids, proudly declaring it's possibly the weirdest beat-em-up ever made. And frankly, looking at the screenshots, it's hard to argue. It's described as a mashup of Parappa the Rapper and Clay Fighter, which gives you a pretty good idea of the visual chows and quirky style. The review goes on about the strange characters, like a girl using a chicken as a shield, as you do, and others that look like they've jumped straight out of a 70s cartoon. The graphics have a flat, doodle-like quality, similar to Yoshi's Story, which is different, I'll give it that, but maybe looks a bit stale next to 3D. Gameplay-wise, it sounds less impressive. It's labeled a limited beat-em-up that quickly devolves into simple button mashing, much like Clay Fighter, which the reviewer notes didn't exactly get rave reviews itself. Despite the wonderfully quirky design and animated characters, the actual game seems to be a bit of a letdown. The final verdict? A rather low 53%. The general consensus is that while the novelty and weirdness are entertaining for a while, the shallow gameplay means it doesn't have much staying power. Good for a rent, maybe, but probably not one for your permanent collection. This page launches into a review of Iggy's Wrecking Balls, and right away, the headline pulls no punches, questioning why the reviewer mark is covering such filth. It seems the reviewer wasn't impressed, calling it a real poor show, and criticizing its blandness despite some attempts at originality. The review describes the game as a mix of basic platforming and racing, where you control a ball-like character on twisting tracks. It highlights that the game requires using skills and power-ups to get ahead, like a grappling hook for climbing, and attacks to hinder opponents. There are mentions of different modes including battle, team combo, and time trial, all supporting split-screen multiplayer. Despite the quirky character designs shown in the Obstacles Buddies and Baddies section, featuring characters like Stompies, Charlie the Medallion Man, Gnarly the Pumpkin, Chatter the Lethal Player, Amanda, QT, and some unnamed passive creatures, the gameplay itself is found lacking. The reviewer notes that while the concept has potential, it ultimately falls flat, leading to boredom rather than excitement. It's summed up as feeling cobbled together, not living up to the potential suggested by the developers involved. The final score awarded is 68%, reflecting a general feeling that the game tries to be different but doesn't quite pull it off, leaving players rather cold. This page dives straight into a review of Wiley Country Club Golf Classics, and crikey, the reviewer isn't pulling any punches right from the off, comparing it unfavorably to their very first golf game review, which also wasn't great. It covers the basics of the game, showing screenshots of the gameplay with the golfer and ball trajectory. There's a diagram explaining the N64 controller layout and what all the buttons do for navigating menus and controlling your swing. The review discusses the swing mechanics and the power gauge, which is described as a bit hit and miss depending on whether you're on easy or difficult settings, making it tricky to gauge your shots accurately. One of the biggest criticisms highlighted is the lack of courses, just the one included, which seems a bit stingy compared to other sports simulations of the era. The reviewer mentions Augusta Masters 98 as being superior, and even brings up how other games like F1 World Grand Prix managed to cram in loads of real-world tracks. Adding a touch of eccentricity is a sidebar recommending Hawaiian-themed music, detailing the editor's rather extensive collection of related records, some apparently by bands who aren't even Hawaiian. There's also a helpful visual guide on how to swing a golf club properly, hosted by a chap named Alex Lee. Overall, it sounds like a golf game that tried but didn't quite land fair on the fairway, leaving the reviewer less than impressed. This page continues the rather harsh review of Wiley Country Club Golf Classics. The reviewer is clearly frustrated, calling the putting system insane, and lamenting the power gauge that lets you wildly overshoot. It seems like the developers missed a few tricks, especially when it comes to the core mechanics of golf itself. Other reviewers chip in, pretty much confirming it's a bit of a disappointment, functional perhaps, but ultimately lacking depth and getting boring quickly. They lay out the ratings for graphics, sound, gameplay and lastability, all feeding into the rather average final N64 score of 69%. Also squeezed onto the page is an import roundup, giving a heads up to eager fans about what US and Japanese titles are expected to hit shelves in September and Q3. They even highlight a couple of one-to-watch games, showing off a bit of Twisted Edge Snowboarding and Ogre Battle 3. Good for those who can't wait for the PAL versions, eh? The Cheats Encyclopedia offers cheats for various Nintendo 64 games, including Banjo-Kazooie, Mission, Impossible, Forsaken 64, F-Zero X, and All-Star Baseball 99. New cheats unlock characters, perform tricks, alter vehicle sizes/colors in F-Zero X, and give characters exaggerated features in Mission, Impossible, and All-Star Baseball 99. Banjo-Kazooie cheats allow for bizarre transformations. The author encourages users to submit undiscovered cheats for a £20 reward. This page continues the glorious N64 cheat bible. Mission Impossible kicks things off with a new entry, offering cheats like Turbo Mode for a bit of Speedy Chows and Kid Mode to run around as smaller characters. Cracking stuff if you fancy a giggle. Next up is Diddy Kong Racing, absolutely rammed with magic codes. You can get big characters, mess about with the balloons, unlock various items, and even play as different drivers like Drumstick and Tap if you can beat them first. It's all about causing delightful mayhem on the track. They mention Buster Move 2, which apparently has a secret world to discover, and Duke Nukem 64 gets the crucial cheats for invincibility and all weapons. Because why wouldn't you want to blast everything to bits without a care in the world? Forsaken 64 is just mentioned as having stunning cheats, but doesn't show them here. FIFA 98, Road to the World Cup is up next, letting you mess with players and effects using various codes tied to team names. Think ghost players, chipmunk voices, or even invisible balls. Perfect for confusing opponents. GoldenEye 007 gets a specific tip for the easy cradle level strategy, classic advice for tackling that tricky spot. Finally, All-Star Baseball finishes things off with some absolutely balmy cheats, letting you play as aliens, or just make everyone look ridiculous with thin or fat bodies. Proper daft fun to round things off. This page dives deeper into the cheat zone, kicking things off with a handy diagram showing you where all the buttons are on that trusty N64 controller. Essential stuff when you're hammering out these codes. We've got a fresh new entry with Banjo-Kazooie, offering a load of infinite goodies. You can nab endless lives, air, eggs, energy, mumbo tokens, red feathers, and even gold feathers, all by heading to the sandcastle and typing in some rather elaborate phrases. Makes exploring Spiral Mountain a doddle you can do. The sports section is next up, featuring ISS 64, with cheats for new teams and laugh-out-loud big heads. Kobe Bryant, in NBA Courtside, lets you unlock hidden teams and get down with some disco-style basketball. Major League Baseball featuring Ken Griffey Jr. is here too, promising hidden stadiums, secret teams including Nintendo execs, proper madness, fireworks displays, and even a way to skip to the ending. Not that you'd want to miss playing it, eh? Madden 64 is just listed, but no cheats are shown for that one. Then things get bloody with Mortal Kombat 4. This classic fighter has cheats for a hidden menu, allowing you to play as characters like Noob Saibot and Goro, plus special two-player combat codes using the character icons. Finally, another new entry with Iggy's Wrecking Balls. This daft racing platformer keeps it simple, letting you unlock all the worlds and characters with straightforward text cheats at the start screen. Looks like a good laugh. This page expands the cheat zone, offering more cheats for various N64 games. Banjo-Kazooie cheats include item manipulation, creature transformations, and rocket launcher boosts. NFL Quarterback Club 98, NHL Breakaway 98, and Forsaken 64 cheats include player manipulation, invincibility, and faster weapon firing. Top Gear Rally cheats unlock everything, change car colors, and allow for bizarre transformations. Cheats for Tetrisphere, Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey, Wheatrix, World Cup 98, Yoshi's Story, and Turok Dinosaur Hunter are also included. A most wanted and least wanted cheat list is provided, and readers can submit cheats for a potential £20 reward. This page dives straight into part 2 of the expert's guide for Banjo-Kazooie. Following on from the previous page's smattering of cheats, this is a proper breakdown of a level. They're tackling Freezy Peak, which is level 5 for those keeping score, and the guide promises to show you where all the precious jiggies and cheeky Jinjos are hiding, rather than just boring you with a step-by-step walkthrough. It's laid out brilliantly, showing the whole level with arrows pointing to little circular screenshots, highlighting key locations for collectibles. You've got tips on finding jiggies from snowman buttons, racing a polar bear called Boggy, yeah, good luck with that, and even how to get transformed by old Mumbo Jumbo into a walrus, because why not? There's a whole section dedicated to finding all 5 Jinjos in the level 2. The Bear Essentials section gives general tips like learning the beak bomb early, essential advice, trust me, and how to deal with those annoying snowman chaps. It's a cracking little guide for navigating that chilly world and grabbing everything you need. The next page follows on nicely from the last, sticking with Banjo-Kazooie, but moving on to level 6, Gobi's Valley. Naturally, you'll need a healthy pile of notes, 350 apparently, just to open the darn thing via the witch's lovely mouth door. Gotta love that logic. This guide is all about helping you track down those elusive jiggies and friendly Jinjos scattered throughout the sandy level. It's laid out just like the last one, showing you the key areas, with helpful little screenshots. They point you towards tricky spots, like finding a jiggy by firing eggs at Jinxie's nostrils, charming, or another by stomping on a camel to make him water a tree. Honestly, who thinks this stuff up? There's also the classic play pairs on a tiled floor, jiggy and navigating pyramids, because Well, it is Egypt, isn't it? The Bare Essentials section has some cracking tips, including the crucial advice to visit bottles for those essential running shoes. They even explicitly mention needing them to beat that fast-footed polar bear, Boggy, back in Race 2 on Freezy Peak. Good to know they're linking it up. It's a solid little guide to make sure you don't miss anything in this sun-baked world. Level 7, Mad Monster Mansion, requires 450 notes to enter. Jiggies are scattered throughout the mansion, including tasks like mimicking an organ, chucking eggs, and navigating the chimney. 10 Jinjos are also hidden, with specific locations detailed. The witch switch is found in the church roof, requiring a flight pad. The level emphasizes using prior skills like running and flying. Overall, it's a well-designed and atmospheric level. Non so hazmeli. This page covers level 8, Rusty Bucket Bay. To get in, you've got to head back to Mad Monster Mansion, find that building near the entrance, transform into a pumpkin, and squash the switch inside to raise the water. Then back to the main watery area to find a newly opened entrance. This level is a bit of a nightmare with that energy-sapping water. The guide points out where to find the Jiggies and Jinjos scattered around the shipyard. You've got Jiggies from platforming challenges like the cranes, solving puzzles like the musical one on the wall, Jiggy 3, and the particularly memorable one in the engine room, Jiggy 9, where you have to stop those blimming propellers and dive down quickly. There's even a poor dolphin you have to rescue, Jiggy 5. The Jinjos are tucked away in various spots, from a buoy in the water to inside a crate, and even submerged underwater. Find all 10 of them to bag an extra Jiggy, Jiggy 10. The guide also shows you where to find the witch switch, high up on one of the cranes. And there are some helpful tips, like using the Wonder Wing for the box boss, and the Rat-at-Rap for smashing portholes to access areas. Standard Bare Essentials too, reminding you about the toll holes and the nasty water. Proper challenging level this one, but classic Banjo-Kazooie. This page dives into level 9, the rather unique Click-Clock Wood. To even get in, you've got to nip back to Mad Monster Mansion. Yeah, the same watery area you used to get to Rusty Bucket Bay last time, remember? Head through the big 640-note door there. Now, this level is famous, or perhaps infamous, for its seasonal changes. You'll be revisiting spring, summer, autumn and winter, because most of the 10 Jiggies and 5 Jinjos are tied to a specific time of year, as if finding them once wasn't enough. Warrington, the guide points out where to find them across the seasons. You'll be helping creatures like a growing chick, Jiggy 2, or that grumpy camel Goby, Jiggy 3, by interacting with them in the right season. Other Jiggies are hidden up the ridiculously tall tree, Jiggy 1, 4, 9, inside a beaver's home, Jiggy 7, or involve sorting out a squirrel's horde, Jiggy 5. There's also a Jiggy for finding all the Jinjos, Jiggy 10, who are scattered about in places like Mumbo's hut, the hive, or simply hiding in some reeds. Don't forget the witch switch, which pops up in winter near a snowman. Bare Essentials remind you about pesky enemies, and using transformations like the bee for those tricky spots. It's a proper test of your skills, navigating this level as the seasons turn. Looks like next month we'll wrap things up with the final level. The next page. Alright, shifting gears from adventuring to commerce, here we have the Department No. 1 Buy-Sell Exchange page. These chaps were pitching themselves as the premier mail order spot for all your gaming needs back in the day. They're offering to buy your old games, sell you new ones, and even swap them over, promising to beat any advertised price. Bit bold that. They're covering all the bases here. Mountains of Nintendo 64 titles, both new and second-hand, accessories, and even those rather useful import converters. They've got a whole section dedicated to the Game Boy Color, showing off a decent library including Japanese imports. And look there, the Sega Dreamcast is proudly displayed, touted as coming soon that November, a serious piece of kit. They're showing off screenshots for games like Castlevania 64, Body Harvest, Earthworm Jim 3D, and the absolute legend that is Zelda, Ocarina of Time, which they're calling coming soon here. Blimey, waiting for that was agony. They also mention the Neo Geo Pocket handheld is on the horizon. They're big on service too, promising next-day delivery for orders placed early, and even repairing broken consoles. Proper one-stop shop for a keen gamer this was. This page. Alright, time for some proper beat-em-up action. We're getting a preview of Fighting Force here from Eidos, who are proudly presenting their first N64 title, described rather wonderfully as the first real mindless violence game for the console. The headline, "It's Going Off," by Alex Lee sets the tone perfectly, promising a bit of a ruckus. This is a 3D arcade fighting game, designed for 1 or 2 players to team up, and just smash things up. You get to pick from 4 different characters, and wade through 7 action-packed levels spread across 25 stages. The big draw is the freedom to move around in 3D environments and, more importantly, the sheer number of weapons you can pick up and use, anything from knives and guns to rocket launchers and just plain old broken bottles. The article mentions the 4 characters are Mace Daniels, Hawk Manson, Ben, Smasher, Jackson, and Alana McKendrick, all ready to scrap. The screenshots show the sort of chaotic street brawls you'll be getting into, with plenty of enemies on screen at once. Eidos sounds pretty chuffed with it, aiming for high-quality action, endless explosions, and non-stop violence. It's all about getting stuck in and sorting things out with your fists, or whatever weapon is handy. Sounds like a good bit of fun, honestly. The next page. Right then, shifting gears, we're taking a look at Chopper Attack from GT Interactive. This is apparently one of the 2 helicopter sims lined up for the N64. The article kicks off with a rather philosophical question about the word chopper itself. Insightful stuff. Visually, it seems to be sticking close to its arcade roots, though the helicopters and explosions look decent enough in the screenshots. They mention having big levels, but you're stuck with limited ammo, which sounds like it could get frustrating pretty quickly. You get to pick from a bunch of pilots, all with their own names, ages, and nationalities. Quite the international crew there. And yes, there's a fantastic quote in here about having a gigantic military attack helicopter in my underpants, which frankly, is worth the price of admission alone. It turns out this game was already out elsewhere as Wild Choppers and apparently got universally panned. Bit worrying. That, however, they're hoping the UK version, which has been tweaked, particularly the controls, might fare better. The core look hasn't changed, but maybe the control improvements will make it a more solid experience. They're suggesting UK owners, who've had some dodgy import conversions, might welcome this if it delivers genuine improvements. Fingers crossed it turns out alright. This page is a big preview for Body Harvest, an N64 title from DMA, the very same lot who'd later bring us Grand Theft Auto. The core idea is brilliant. Aliens are invading Earth throughout different periods in history, and you're sent back to various points to save mankind. You play as Adam Drake, a chap who's genetically enhanced and quite capable, able to drive pretty much anything he finds, and wield various weapons against the alien threat. The aliens themselves are monstrous insects, apparently linked to a huge comet called Shisha. They just pop up from nowhere, causing destruction across the ages, from the 19th century right through the 20th. It sounds like you'll be traveling to places like Greece, and maybe even the site of the Tunguska explosion. There are a couple of screenshots showing the action, including a map, and what looks like some vehicular combat in a space hovercraft. You'll also get guidance from a character called Daisy, via your map display. The article highlights that the game was designed specifically for the N64's hardware and analog control. It's being developed in Dundee, is apparently 90% complete, and expected out in November. Looks like a proper ambitious sci-fi adventure spanning the centuries. This page continues the preview for Body Harvest, and it looks like the alien threat is even more varied and nasty than we first thought. That enormous green creature looming in the background is just one type of vile alien you'll have to scrap with as Adam Drake, apparently. We also get introduced properly to Daisy, your mission briefing contact. She's the one giving you the lowdown on where to go and what bits of kit might be handy. And yes, the magazine notes, she reminds them of a certain character from Blade Runner. Can't argue with that. The car trouble section confirms that driving is a massive part of the game. There are over 70 different vehicles scattered about, and you can hop into pretty much anything. The clear message is that getting around in a car or hovercraft is way safer and quicker than hoofing it when you're up against these alien swarms. The screenshots back this up, showing off some of the different vehicles and that ever-useful map interface. Looks like a proper madcap dash through history. This page is all about the swap shop. Ah, the glorious days of trading your unwanted N64 carts for something shiny and new to you. It kicks off welcoming you to the magazine's very own trading post, explaining you can swap, sell, or even just connect with other gamers. We've got a whole load of adverts from readers looking to offload or acquire specific games. It's a real mix, everything from Extreme Egg and Lilac Wars to World Cup 98 and Banjo-Kazooie. Seems like plenty of folks were trying to get their hands on the classics or finish their collections. Then there's the top swap section giving us the definitive lists of what everyone wanted and what they were trying to get rid of. Unsurprisingly, Banjo-Kazooie is the most wanted. Couldn't get enough of that bear and bird. And bless their hearts, Super Mario 64 and Diddy Kong Racing were already hitting the not wanted list for some. Mad, really timeless gems. They also highlight 1080 snowboarding as the swap of the month. And finally, there's the form at the bottom, ready for you to scribble down your swap details and send it in. Good old snail mail trading. This page is all about getting hooked up with N64 Pro on the regular. None of that missing an issue malarkey. Look at those weird CGI characters, they're clearly buzzing about this offer. You can bag the next 13 issues for a mere £20 if you're in the UK, which they reckon is almost 50% off, and a whopping £18.87 saving. That works out to about £1.54 per issue, which is a steal really. They highlight the perks. Getting the mag delivered before it even hits the shops. Brilliant. And delivered for free apparently. No lugging it home from the newsagent. There's a form to fill out if you're old school, or you can phone, fax, or even email them. They list prices for other regions too, but honestly, the UK deal is where it's at. They even push the direct debit option as hassle-free and cheaper per quarter. Seems like a decent way to keep the N64 goodness flowing without fail. This page is shouting about a massive giveaway. It's back, it proclaims, calling it the biggest giveaway ever. Apparently the total prize value is now over £2,000, which is a decent haul back then, let me tell you. They're offering up a load of varied goodies. First up, a swanky £850 Sony hi-fi system, proper top-off-the-range stuff, pictured there looking all sleek. Then there are bundles of books, Star Wars, incredible cross-sections and visual dictionaries, essential reading for any self-respecting geek, let's be honest, and, well, 5 copies of Guide to Erotic Anime Movies books, strictly for the over-18s, naturally. A bit of a mixed bag of prizes, eh? You can also win packs of 10 Gamester LMP see-through joypads, the ones with the lights, look cool, 10 Logic 3 Thunderpad joypads for the N64, and bundles of 256 MB memory packs. To get your hands on this lot, you've got to answer some questions on the entry form provided. They range from music trivia related to the hi-fi, identifying see-through Nintendo handhelds, counting buttons on a controller, knowing the medical term for memory loss, a bit random, naming an 18-rated manga movie, and some Star Wars trivia about Jabba's hunters and the actor for C-3PO. Just fill it in clearly, and send it off before the October 31st deadline. Good luck trying to snag that hi-fi. This page is all about trying to get your hands on those elusive N64 Pro back issues. They're flogging them for a mere £3 a pop, which was a bargain even back then. But look at 'em, the first 3 issues are already sold out. Proper sought after, those early ones. They show off the covers for issues right up to number 12, featuring games like F-Zero X, Zelda 64, World Cup 98, and Forsaken. There's a little order form there too, proper old school, asking you to fill in your details and preferred payment method like check or postal order. Then you've got a few different sections promoting goods and services. There's a bit from European Technologies, listing various accessories and imports for PlayStation, and then 64, like decode chips and cables. Another section offers Nintendo 64 cheats and tips for a load of different games across genres, but you have to ring a premium rate number to get them, cheeky sods. There's also a big bright advert with a monkey, clearly trying to get people to buy advertising space in the mag. Finally, you've got a massive list of games for sale from new generation consoles, covering pretty much every format under the sun, from UK PlayStation to Dreamcast, with prices and contact details. It's basically a page packed with ways to get your hands on more gaming goodness. Please provide the text you would like me to summarize. Bunny v. Durangton Zine. This page is the hallowed ground of reader feedback, pro-post feedback, where the N64 faithful air their grievances and shower praise. We've got folks complaining about Banjo-Kazooie maps making them feel ill. Crikey, better stick to the game itself then. There's a bit of a fuss about women who like football and computers, with a classic line advising someone that football is something you love, not just like. Naturally, the old N64 versus PS1 storage debate rears its head, with cartridge fans arguing that pointless full-motion video isn't worth sacrificing gameplay space for. Fair point, who wants to watch dodgy acting when you could be gaming? We also hear from a big fan of Diddy Kong Racing, who loves its color and addictiveness, even comparing it favorably to Cruisin' USA. Contrasting that, the Letter of the Month winner liked Top Gear Rally, though not as much as the legendary F1 World Grand Prix. Plenty of other games get a shout-out, from GoldenEye, still holding up, to Mario 64, and even some classic 16-bit titles. Someone else weighs in on violence in games, listing off a bunch of PS1 titles they've played, and concluding it's not the point. All in all, a typical lively month of opinions from the N64 crowd. This page is the ultimate rundown of the best N64 games according to the MAG and others, a true guide for anyone wanting the top titles. The chart section breaks down the highest scoring games, with Banjo-Kazooie sitting pretty at the top in the N64 Pro chart, and GoldenEye 007 just pipping it in the combined all MAGs list. Classic stuff like Super Mario 64 and Diddy Kong Racing are naturally right up there. Rates tell. We've got a bunch of individual game profiles too. 1080 snowboarding gets a nod for its stunning scenery, while F-Zero X bursts onto the scene as a lightning-fast new entry, though its graphics are a bit plain next to Diddy Kong. Some races like Automobili, Lamborghini and Aerogauge don't fare so well, earning harsh words for dull gameplay or shoddy visuals. Stick to Lilat Wars or F-Zero instead. Banjo-Kazooie is rightly hailed as a genius work, apparently even better than Mario 64, a bold claim. Blast Corps gets praised for its destructive fun, and even Bomberman gets a look in with a couple of titles. There's a handy stamp of approval symbol to point out the absolute must-buys. And the racing games section gives Diddy Kong Racing the top spot, highlighting the best of the bunch and unfortunately, the dreaded wooden spoon winner, Cruisin' USA, which truly earned its place at the bottom. It's a solid snapshot of the N64 library's finest and not so finest. This page dives deeper into the N64 library, kicking off with a cracking image of Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong, fitting for the racing champ they represent. We've got a top beat em-ups list here, putting games like Fighter's Destiny and Mortal Kombat 4 up at the top where they belong. Looking at the reviews, some games get the thumbs up, like Buster Move 2, a stone-cold classic puzzle game. Simple but brilliant. Then there's GoldenEye 007, hailed as the smoothest secret agent game and the best first-person shooter ever made, can't argue with that, and IS-98, apparently, the best football game ever made, which is high praise indeed. Diddy Kong Racing gets another shout-out as jaw-droppingly outstanding, and the #1 racing game on the console. Still the benchmark, but it's not all sunshine. Poor old Cruisin' USA, the wooden spoon winner from the previous page, gets absolutely slated again, called dated with jerky animation and sluggish gameplay. Yeah? Best race right past that one in the shops. Some others, like Dual Heroes and F1 Pole Position, don't fare much better, described as uninspiring or bland. There's even a strange one called Fire Electric Pen, which sounds like quite the oddity. Overall, it's a mixed bag of reviews, celebrating the certified classics we all loved, and warning you off the duds that, frankly, should probably stay in the bargain bin. This page gives us a good look at even more N64 releases, covering a cracking variety of titles. Front and center, we've got an image hinting at Mission Impossible, which gets a review as a new entry and is called a surprisingly good puzzle and adventure game, perfect for those who like a proper challenge. There are a load of game reviews here, from solid sports titles like Kobe Bryant in NBA Courtside and Major League Baseball featuring Ken Griffey Jr., both scoring a decent 85%, to the fast-paced action of NHL Breakaway, which is hailed as brilliant at 90%. We also see the stunning Lilat Wars, getting a well-deserved 91% for its amazing graphics and frantic gameplay, and the essential Mario Kart 64, another 91% classic. Of course, not everything is golden. While games like Pilot Swings, 64, 91%, and Nagano Winter Olympics, 93%, get high praise, some others don't fare so well. Mortal Kombat Mythologies gets absolutely hammered at a mere 28%, described as nothing short of horrifying. Definitely one to avoid, bless its soul. Mace. The Dark Age and Mischief Makers are okay but have some visual quirks, and NBA Pro 98 sounds like a bit of a dull affair compared to others. We also get a couple of top marks lists, highlighting the best and the rather less good in the puzzle and platform game genres. It's a comprehensive overview, showing the depth and variety arriving on the N64 at the time. This page dives straight into another massive batch of N64 reviews in the profile section, showing off even more of what the console has to offer. We've got absolute giants here, like the legendary Super Mario 64, which they reckon might just be the best video game ever, and frankly, who can argue with that? Wave Race 64 is another essential, getting high praise for its incredible water effects and jet ski racing thrills. You'll find some serious action too, with Turok, Dinosaur Hunter bringing the prehistoric carnage, and Quake 64 delivering that fast-paced run-and-gun gameplay that Doom fans will love. There's the charming Yoshi's Story featured prominently, looking as cute as ever, described as a simple but enjoyable platformer. Not every game hits the mark, of course. Star Soldier makes its debut as a new entry, but sounds like one to skip entirely. And War Gods apparently earns the dubious title of the worst fighting game on the system. But there's plenty of variety to keep you busy. From racing in Top Gear Rally and San Francisco Rush, to sports sims like World Cup '98 and Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey. The page also highlights the best in shoot-'em-ups and sports sims in dedicated lists. The next page looks ahead to what's coming in the next issue. We've got a big preview for Fighting Force, Eido's Kill Everything epic. Sounds promising, eh? Looks like it's bringing a proper beat-em-up vibe to the N64. They're also hyping up Earthworm Jim 3D, which is heading underground with a big gun, and Vrally 64, boldly claiming it proves the N64 is better than the competition. Spelling it out like that cheeky. Body Harvest is also on the horizon, promising illegal aliens storming the Earth. The right side is dominated by a massive advert from Special Reserve, a mail-order place flogging gear. They've got everything from N64 consoles and games, to old SNES titles and Game Boy bits, even some PlayStation games thrown in for good measure. They're pushing their membership club hard, which gets you discounts, and apparently some free swag. It's a pretty comprehensive list of what was hot, and maybe not so hot at the time, all available via mail order.